All right, this is a brief example of some organic molecules and their involvement in a somewhat amusing story that's about the misuse of science. And so I've got entitled this Heredity, DNA, Protein, and the Misuse of Science. And it actually involves carbohydrates as well. And this is an example of something called the Dunnand Krieger effect. The Dunnand Krieger effect is a relationship between confidence and knowledge in a field. And when people have when they're introduced to some new knowledge, often they become confident if they understand the initial ideas. And so then later on, as they learn more, they'll become less confident. And they'll recognize there's more complexity. And so incompetent people often don't recognize when they're incompetent. It's kind of an interesting idea, and it's a well-researched idea. So this story begins with something called lactose. Lactose is a sugar, and it actually contains two sugar units, galactose and glucose, that are linked together. And for humans or any kind of mammal to digest this, they need an enzyme called lactase. And lactase splits lactose into two units. And those two units can then be absorbed and used in the human body or the body of any animals. Okay, and because lactose is only found in milk of mammals, almost no other animals have this. And even mammals, when they become adults, because they don't have a diet that will include milk, they'll stop producing lactase. And so they become what are called lactose intolerant. They can't digest it. And so instead of being split into glucose and galactose, it remains as lactose in their intestine, and it's going to pass out, and normally that causes diarrhea. In humans, most humans can't digest lactose as adults, but they can still eat dairy products that have been fermented because fermentation reduces the lactose. So they can eat things like yogurt and cheese. And if they take Lactaid, which has the enzyme lactase in it, they can actually even drink milk. Well, there's some interesting research that shows that some humans can digest lactose even as adults. Okay, and that's because some humans have a mutation, a change in their DNA that allows adults to continue to produce the enzyme lactase as adults. Normally, adult mammals stop making it. Okay, and so this mutation is most common in northern Europeans. And it's found in several places in Asia and Africa. And in those places, it's almost always associated with raising cattle. And so places where cattle raising has been popular, this mutation has occurred, and it's been favored. And so you see it came up in Africa in a couple places, in the Middle East, and in Northern Europe. Well, there's been some misuse of this information, and it's by, not surprisingly, a group of people that aren't strongly or deeply knowledgeable about science. These are white supremacists. And they've kind of hit on that many Northern Europeans have this genetic ability to drink milk even as adults. And so here you have some white supremacists in the upper picture chugging milk because they take this as a sign of their genetic superiority. This is a good example of a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And any genetic trait, even one like lactase production, is advantageous only in specific environments. And so many parts of the world where cattle were not raised, there's not a real advantage to having this gene. And in other parts of the world, there may be other people that aren't part of your white supremacist group that have the same gene. In fact, many African groups have this. Many groups from the Middle East have this trait. And so it's not associated with genetic superiority, just with cattle raising. And in fact, in many cases, other traits may be far more important. Maybe traits like the production of melanin that prevent you from getting skin cancer in that environment. So here's a good example of a trait that's useful in some ways but not others. Certainly it's no indication of genetic superiority overall, or obviously not even intelligence, and certainly not for an understanding of science.